I have the biggest feud going on with my mother-in-law right now, and it's about my stupid garden. I don't mean to call it stupid because that's my safe place, but here she goes trying once again to ruin anything I love. Guys, here's another wild mother-in-law story titled The Garden War with Mother-in-Law. I never thought I'd find myself pouring my heart out to a bunch of strangers on the internet, but here I am. I'm desperate for advice and support as I navigate the minefield of my relationship with my mother-in-law, Joanne. From the moment I first met Joanne, it was crystal clear that we were polar opposites in every way. I'm free-spirited, creative soul who always has marched to the beat of my own drum. As a freelance graphic designer, I've built a career that allows me to express my individuality. A quality that's also reflected in my bohemian fashion sense and the wild, untamed garden I've cultivated in my backyard. For me, life is about embracing the unconventional and finding beauty in the unexpected. Joanne, on the other hand, is the quintessential traditionalist. She lives her life according to the rigid rules set out and expectations, never straying from the path of convention and propriety. Appearances are everything to her, and she takes immense pride in presenting a flawless image to the world. From her immaculate home to her perfectly manicured rose garden. So, from our very first meeting, it was obvious that Joanne saw me as an entirely unsuitable match for her precious son, David. In her eyes, I was too wild, too unpolished, too, quote, out there to fit into the neat little box that she had envisioned for his future. She had always pictured him settling down with somebody more appropriate. A woman who shared her traditional values and could slip seamlessly into the conventional lifestyle that she had mapped out for her boy. So, as my relationship with David progressed, we eventually got engaged. Joanne's disapproval only seemed to intensify. At our wedding, she made no attempt to hide her disdain, offering these tight smiles and compliments that were backhanded about my non-traditional dress and the relaxed outdoor setting that we chose instead of a fancy venue at the church. Well, anyways, it was clear that in her eyes I would never measure up to the perfect daughter-in-law that she wanted. In the years since, Joanne's criticism of my lifestyle has only grown more pointed and relentless. Every interaction with her is fraught with tension. As I brace myself for the inevitable barrage of judgments and put-downs, she never misses an opportunity to highlight the ways in which I'm failing to meet her, standards. Whether it's my, quote, unstable career, my inappropriate fashion choices, or my perceived lack of domestic prowess. But perhaps the deepest cut of all this is the way that she wields my beloved garden as a weapon against me. In Joanne's eyes, my wild, exuberant patch of earth is the ultimate symbol of everything she finds unacceptable about me. My lack of discipline, my disregard for tradition, my uncivilized ways. She takes every chance to unfavorably compare my blooms and untamed greenery to her own sterile, rigidly controlled bed rose. Yeah, her bed of roses, holding them as proof of her superiority of me. For years, I would just wilt under the constant onslaught of Joanne's disapproval, feeling my confidence and sense of self slowly erode with each cutting remark. Well, the pain I would feel is thoroughly rejecting to me. Somebody who should have welcomed me into the family with open arms have left me feeling like an outsider in my own life. But finally, one particular vicious put down too many, something in me snapped. Fueled by a sudden determination to prove my worth and show Joanne that there was value and beauty in my unconventional approach to life, I made the bold decision to enter our town's prestigious garden competition. It's an event that Joanne's dominated for years. I thought that if I could just make a strong showing, maybe even beat her at her own game, she would finally see me in a different light. So I poured my heart and soul into preparing for the competition. I channeled all my creativity, TikTok videos mainly, and passion into transforming my humble garden into a breathtaking wonderland. I incorporated some bold colors, surprising textures, and unique artistic elements, crafting a space that was joyful celebration. Well, I even invited Joanne over to see my handiwork, secretly hoping that what we were witnessing was the fruits of my labor firsthand. It might even soften her stance towards me. Instead, she merely feigned polite interest while clearly struggling to mask her disdain. When the big day arrived, and the judges began their rounds of the neighborhood. I was a bundle of nerves and anticipation. I wanted this one. As they took in all the unexpected beauty of my garden, I could not help but feel a thrill. Well, anyways, for a moment I dared to hope that this might be the turning point I had been so desperately longing for. But anyways, those hopes were dashed when the results were announced and Joanne was once again declared the winner, with my garden coming into a close second. All she has is a rose garden. How did it beat me? Watching her accept the trophy while smugly smiling at me, ugh, what a defeat. To have so close to beating her, only to fall short at the last minute, it's a bitter pill to swallow. Anyways, after the competition, it soon became clear that my strong showing had only hardened Joanne's resolve to put me in a place once and for all. Leveraging her considerable influence with the local gardening club, she began covertly pushing for new rules, new bylaws, that would effectively outlaw the kind of unconventional, expressive style of gardening that I practiced. So, when I found out about her schemes, I confronted her. She simply shrugged, playing innocent while making it abundantly clear that she fully supported any measures to rein in what she saw as my unacceptable horticulture choices. She wants to control everything. I could feel the smug satisfaction rolling off her in waves, secure in her conviction that she was merely upholding the sacred traditions of tasteful, proper gardening, yada, yada, yada. Now, I find myself facing an imminent inspection to assess my garden's compliance with the new HOA bylaws and the new arbitrary guidelines that seem to have been created for the sole purpose of targeting and penalizing my creative vision. Anyways, I feel trapped, I feel desperate. I even tried making my fight to the court of public opinion. I started an online local campaign on the Facebook group of the neighborhood to rally support for gardeners like myself, who dare to think outside the box. I would share these photos of my garden in all its unconventional glory, alongside impassionate posts about the importance of artistic freedom and the danger of allowing small-minded people to get in the way. To my amazement, my story seemed to strike a chord, and soon I had a small but vocal army of neighborhood supporters, calling for the club to just reject Joanne's restrictive new policies. For a moment, I thought that this time I would actually emerge victorious, that my garden and all its representation could be saved. But I underestimated Joanne's ruthlessness and her determination to triumph. She hates me. Just days before the crucial vote on the new guidelines, a club member sympathetic to Joanne leaked documents revealing that my husband David's business, well, it's been struggling and that we were in debt. With a few carefully placed comments, Joanne was able to spin a narrative painting me as a reckless spendthrifter who poured money into my frivolous garden while my family suffered. Never mind that the financial strain had been caused by a perfect storm of unforeseen setbacks beyond our control, or that my garden was a source of solace. Well, that helped me weather those dark times we were going through. In the scandal-hungry court of small-town public opinion, I was quickly tried and convicted. Overnight, my campaign fizzled as supporters melted away. With no defense against the unexpected blow, I could only watch helplessly as the club voted overwhelmingly to adopt Joanne's restrictive new guidelines. In a final twist of the knife, I found myself abruptly stripped of the second-place finish that's been my only consolation. Citing an obscure technicality, dredged up by Joanne, of course, the club declared me retroactively disqualified. Now, as I survey the ruins of my once vibrant garden, already withering under the oppressive weight of the new rules, I'm struggling to hold on to any sense of hope or purpose. My husband David, the privately sympathetic, has made it crystal clear to me that he expects me to comply with the regulations for the sake of keeping peace with his mom and obviously so we don't get fined. But the thought of meekly falling in line, of ripping out the last remaining vestiges of my creativity, it just to appease Joanne's vision of acceptable gardening, I can't stand for it. I feel like it's kind of a spiritual death. A surrender of everything that makes me who I am. How can I tend to this pale shadow of what my garden once was, knowing that every clipped hedge and restrained bloom represents another little piece of my soul being leached away? And yet, what choice do I have? To keep fighting would be to risk even further damage to my marriage, and my friendship, and my husband's not even standing up for me, and the already fragile remains of my standing in the community. As much as it galls me to admit it, Joanne has won. She's proven that her influence in the neighborhood and her uncompromising traditionalism are more powerful than my dreams and convictions. So, in the end, perhaps that's the biggest lesson of all. Well, that no matter how hard we strive to cultivate our own little patches of beauty and meaning in this world, there will always be those eager to trample with underfoots in the name of conformity and control. So I want to ask you guys this. If you were in my position, what exactly would you do to Joanne? And also, I want to know, my husband, he doesn't feel very supportive of this. I know he just doesn't want me to go too far because he wants to keep a good relationship with his mom and me. But at the same time, I think he's being what we call a floor mat by not standing up for his own wife. And you know what? He knows how much I love that garden. I would spend hours there. And all the stuff that was in the garden was cheap stuff. I put it together myself, do-it-yourself craftables. I didn't spend any money. But anyways, even in my depths of despair, I find myself clinging stubbornly to the tiniest kernel of defiance. Though my garden may be diminished, the spark that inspired its creation still flickers within me, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a shed, and I'm going to make an inside garden, because they don't have any rules against that, and I'm going to post it everywhere, all over the neighborhood Facebook page. I'm going to send it to my insane mother-in-law, and I'm going to have my peaceful garden whether she likes it or not. Let me know if you have any advice about how to handle the situation. What's up, everybody? Wow. What an insane little 1v1 we have here with OP and mother-in-law going neck and neck at the fight of a garden. There's not been any more updates on this post just yet, but you guys will be the first to know when one drops. However, we're going to check out some comments right now. The comments are between Green Thumb Warrior and Voice of Reason 42. They're going back and forth with a little argument, and comment one from Green Thumb Warrior says this. Honestly, OP, I think you should have just stood your ground and kept fighting. Who cares what that old bat Joanne thinks? It's your garden, it's your property, it's your life. You should not have to conform to her narrow-minded standards just to keep the peace. I don't know. I know it's easier said than done, but sometimes you have to be willing to risk ruffling a few feathers to defend what matters to you the most. If your husband David can't have your back on this, then maybe you need to have a serious conversation about where his priorities lie. Don't let them break your spirit, OP. Keep trending to the inner fire and don't be afraid to let it shine, no matter how much the Joannes of the world try to smother it. Comment number 2 from Voice of Reason. No, I'm sorry, I really am, but I have to disagree with the previous commenter. While I sympathize with OP's situation and admire her creativity, I think she's failing to consider the big picture here. Like it or not, we all have to make certain compromises and accommodations to maintain harmony in our families and communities. I mean, HOAs, right? Is it really worth jeopardizing her own marriage and social standing just to make a point about her gardening preference? Come on. Sometimes being an adult means to learn to pick your battles and find ways to express yourself within the established norms. You even said you're struggling financially, and here you are worrying yourself to death over a little friendly garden contest while your family is starving. OP, I know it hurts to feel like you're being stifled, but perhaps this is an opportunity to channel your creativity, in more constructive ways, that is. You know, volunteer with a local arts organization, take up a new hobby, or focus on cultivating your inner garden while finding subtler ways to let your unique spirit shine. Make peace with Joanne, come on. It may feel like you're surrendering, but in the long run, it's the mature and responsible way for the sake of your own family and well-being. But hey, that's just my 2 cents. And the final comment coming back from Green Thumb Warrior does not like that response. Says, wow, way to be a victim and victim blame. Ugh. Just accept the soul-crushing conformity and find a more acceptable outlet for your silly little creative urges. That's what it sounds like you're saying. That's some top-notch advice right there. Newsflash. There's nothing mature or responsible about rolling over and letting a bully steamroll you into submission. You're talking about compromise to keep the peace, but from where I'm standing, OP's the one being asked to make sacrifices here. What does she get from it? What should she have to do? Bend over backwards to accommodate Joanne's rigged worldview? What about Joanne learns to accept and embrace her daughter-in-law's unique perspective and style, since her husband loves her? This isn't about OP being a selfish rebel who refused to play nice with others. It's about her fundamental right to express herself authentically in her own space without being constantly judged, belittled, and controlled. So, in her community, and loved ones can't understand and respect it, then maybe they're the ones who need to do some soul-searching and pick their battles more wisely. Team OP. Alright guys, let me know in the comment section down below, are you Team OP or are you Team Mother-in-Law? Let's talk about it. But first, let's send it over to the studio camera now. Alright guys, this one was interesting. I love these back and forth comments. Let me know down below if you guys like reviewing some of the comments of the story, especially the ones that are popular arguing back and forth. Alright, so here's the question. We have two commenters. One was from Green Thumb Warrior and the other one was from Voice of Reason. Voice of Reason kinda says, I'm sorry, but I disagree with the previous commenter. While I sympathize with OP's situation and admire her creativity, I think she's failing to consider the bigger picture here. Like it or not, we all have to make certain compromises and accommodations to maintain harmony in our communities. So basically, Voice of Reason saying, I think that OP should have just dropped it and just gone about with the bylaws and just followed the rules. When Green Thumb Warrior's like, no, you have to stand up for yourself. You just can't accept stuff when people are trying to soul crush you. And newsflash, word for word, there's nothing more mature or responsible about rolling over and letting a bully steamroll you into submission. So guys, those are the two argumentative points, and I just want to know which one you're on. Are you siding with Green Thumb Warrior, or are you siding with, Voice of Reason? Let's talk about it down below, guys. My name is Mr. Reddito. This is my revenge channel where every single story has something to do with revenge. And if you guys did enjoy this, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow, and of course remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.